Good evening, December 13th, 2023, here in Sarasota, Florida. It's a little after 6 p.m. in the evening. I am still sick on, I don't even know what day it is, day 11, I think, 10 or 11 since I've been sick. And I'm on the tail end for certain, but am still not 100%. And it is really making for a very, very, very different December than I was hoping for, than I was planning for, that I was intending. December can be a tough month for me. Um, in my past as a kid, I absolutely positively loved Christmas. I loved Christmas when I was young. Um, I loved getting gifts for people, and like, not like gifts, back when you longed to dream up, find, think of the perfect gift for the important people in your life. And I used to buy gifts for the kids that I babysat for when I was in middle school. Of course, I didn't continue babysitting once I started high school. But in middle school, I bought, dollar store gifts for all the kids I babysat for in the neighborhood, my closest girlfriends, of course, my immediate family. Um, and it was just, I loved the change of seasons. I loved, um, I just loved that magic of Christmas. Yes, it's commercialized. Yes, to some degree it's contrived. Yes, it sucks that so many people believe it's got to be only one time a year, or that a time on the year, any time on the year, could dictate how we're supposed to act. Or you can judge it or label it or try to explain it, but the one thing that it's hard to do is to deny the momentum of energy that exists still in our culture, in our world, especially in this country, around the Christmas holiday, around the December holiday. And it has never, ever, ever been the same here in Florida, not even remotely close to what I experienced for the first 18 years of my life. And for that reason and more, it oftentimes, despite it being easier than ever for me to navigate this time of year, it still creeps up on me pretty much every single year. I think I'm going to make it through and not feel sad about the way my life looks on the surface, the way that my life is in certain ways below the surface. How it, you know, I don't like to um be affected by certainly commercialization of things. I don't like necessarily being influenced by materialism and hyper focusing that certain days of the year are any different than any other days. Like, I like to believe that I'm, sort of above these these conditioned things that I was unaware of for so long. And now, almost from this, it's like, can almost be seen as like a spiritual elitism, that you're above it. But the reality is that it is very, very challenging for me to overcome the momentum of the collective energies around me, and the depth and the power of my memories. I have a very, very strong memory. And because I don't see and believe that time is linear, that means that memories I have that I can deeply relate to, correlate to, associate with very specific days on our calendar year, that means that in some ways I can experience it and feel it as if it really was just yesterday. And that sometimes is hard for me not to feel sad about, because there was an innocence, There was a purity, there was a naivety, there was a very very different description of what my life was, and what I had in my life at that time that I don't have in my life at this time. And so it creeps up on me. So I was just listening to some Christmas music and finding, as I try to associate new memories, one, Christmas music still doesn't make any fucking sense in Florida. So it's really challenging to get into the season in Florida. And as I try to, create different memories that are associated with more quote unquote present time as opposed to my past, I seem to always get flung back into the past. And it's I love feeling that, when I can connect to it from who I was in the linear, like from that past perspective, but it's hard to feel it from the current perspective and not feel sad, if that makes sense. In any case, today also happens to be somebody's birthday from my very recent past, who I spent the better part of the past decade with in as a key part of my life, and his absence from my life, that I do believe, now I believe it does have to be permanent. um it weighs heavily on me. Today is his 46th birthday, just 4 days after my 48th birthday. And even though he never acknowledged birthdays, so other than my very first birthday we spent together, we never did anything particularly special at all for either of our birthdays at this time of year. Again, I am hit with heavier, sadder feelings than I want to be. And I'm just sort of in this moment acknowledging it and being with it and trying to sit with it all, with just it not labeled and without its description, and instead just as these pieces of my life story, as I consciously work to once again have an intention of sharing the story of my life and the stories within the story of my life, in a different way come the calendar year switch to 2024. So I'm sitting here just sort of with pieces and not trying to assemble them in any sort of picture, but just be with them as their own individual piece. And when you see it without relating it to something else, my hope is that I'm able to have an easier time of, again, not associating any feelings with it, not assigning any specific feelings with that piece. But then I'm wondering, can I really separate the feelings from the piece? You know, um, and I don't have an answer to that. I just felt compelled to talk to myself, mostly because I'm also pondering at this time. I'm in like this limbo spot. I've got 2 different events this weekend, and then I've got a gum graft surgery, a redo next week. So I'm still going to be laid out for the basically this month after these 3 days of work. And I'm really intending to do a lot within my world of work, but it's such a different flow of energy. And right now I'm like holding my world of work back until I'm through this weekend. And then in some way I'm holding myself back so that I have enough energy to heal, next week. And and then before I know it, it's January and off to the races we go again. As I also sit here simultaneously tonight with all of these other things I'm discussing, I'm literally working on my schedule for 2024, and just calculated up the days that I am about to book for 2024, and where that puts me for this high level picture of my year financially, um, which also entails some major intentions as I challenge myself to have a pretty high-end goal for my world of work, in terms of a goal of wanting to double my earnings from this year, since my earnings with my company, now again, not my overall earnings, have not doubled from last year to this year. Not at all. They're going to be probably pretty comparable, actually probably a little less than last year. But my 1099, my company's work, my entire year of earnings this year will be represented for the first time entirely by my company. Yes, compensated with a little under the table work, very little under the table work, compensated a little bit by my plasma donations, and complemented very minimally with sales of my books and art, since I sold a little bit, but not even $1,000 worth of books and art this year. And so seeing that I literally doubled my 1099 income from last year to this year, I have been playing with the idea of setting as a goal to double my 1099 income between this year and next year. And the doubling would come from and would result from, one, garnering a higher daily wage for my event work, because I've now begun to draw in where I think I really have a strong argument to make, where my value lays. And now I've got examples of people compensating me on a higher end than I've ever been compensated before, which can and should be used as a negotiating power piece for the other companies that are not yet paying me that. So the increase in income will come from that a little bit, but the real goal is to generate, the goal would be to generate at least an average of $1,000 per month by the end of the year, have that as my average for not my event work, but my art, my workshops, my books, my Patreon page, being able to earn at least 1,000 a month. And really, if I'm going to meet my goal, it would have to be closer to 2,000 a month on average, which is totally doable, like totally doable, but it's on the high end of being a realistic, achievable goal. It's on the high end here. And I told myself that I'm going to use the next few weeks to really get myself to the point of believing that that really is possible, and not having any attachment to it, but really, like, for real believing it. Right now, I'd be lying if I said, like, I'm like, I don't know that that's a pretty ambitious goal, to go from where I'm at this year to doubling it. It's damn near $3,000 more a month than what I currently made, which was about $3,000 a month, a little bit more. So that's pretty ambitious. That's pretty ambitious. And if I didn't have so many things in place that could earn me income from my world of work, then I would believe it wasn't possible. But because I do, now I'm not presenting it extremely well yet, it's not coordinated yet, and I'm definitely not doing enough to promote myself. But that is the framework that I'm working on the rest of this month to try to set up. And in order to do all that, I have to have a root of inspiration. And, I've been told throughout this entire life, time, that I've been told many times by many people across the years, that they find me inspiring. And sometimes I want to say, not often, but kind of times like this, where I'm really struggling again to inspire myself, because sometimes I want to say to people, it's great it's fantastic to be inspiring to others, but when you're somebody that inspires, I wonder sometimes if people wonder where your inspiration comes from, like what keeps you going, what keeps me inspired. And the reality is, we don't live, I am not inspired by a whole hell of a lot outside of me. In fact, I would say 90% plus of my inspiration in my life is derived from within and from myself, which I think is a great goal for all of us to have, to be inspired by. And I would say it's through what I call, universal cosmic source energy, God energy. That is ultimately, I think, because inspiration to me is also synonymous with expansion. I think we're naturally, because I believe at the essence of us, we are light. We are frequencies and vibrations of light and energy. And by virtue of that, we're constantly expanding. And I find that to be what inspiration is. It's like a pull to expand. And I think we all should be aiming to be our own inspirations. But I also believe that we are here to co-create inspiring things with one another. And so a lot of times what inspires me, is, it's the connection with others, and it's the co-creation with others, and it's the working to achieve something as a unit with others. Like, that is what I really, really find inspiring. And in the world right now, we're in this beautiful, magical time of shifting to really taking that for a spin, way outside, at least in my circumference, way outside the lines of doing these like within sort of quote unquote any normal way. A lot of it is done artistically, a lot of it is done entrepreneurially. um Again, at least for my life, I don't know that you find a lot of inspiration in a cubicle environment, if that's what your daily work is. We get inspired by sports stars, we get inspired by great stories, we get inspired by the stories of humanity that tell the essence of humanity. We get inspired by greatness, we get inspired by talent and music and art. And these are the things I want to create. And this is what I want my daily life to be about. And I don't know for how many more years that I can push through so much work that isn't inspiring to me, where I have to, for me, I'm holding on to experiences of, say, a work weekend that other people are not, to inspire me through. It's like I'm surrounded by other people that are passionate about the work, but I'm not passionate in the same way that they are. And therefore, even though I'm part of a team, sort of what's inspiring is very solo. And I think the beautiful thing is when you're inspired individually and collectively as part of your team, and you're all sort of inspired by that same unifying goal. And I don't know for how much longer. I don't want to say I fake it. I don't fake it. It's just where I choose to focus my energy when I'm doing these gigs currently that primarily pay for my bills. It's just hard because the nature of the gigs I don't find inspiring. And I don't want to be the poo-pooer of everybody else that comprises my team, of which a large number are inspired by the running and triathlon world. And I don't want to seem like an asshole, saying that I'm not inspired by it. But the reality is I'm not. I'm not inspired by a medal and a t-shirt. Am I inspired by what it represents for people pushing themselves to limits they haven't yet known, pushing themselves to be better and better? Absolutely. I just wish I could personally be a part of something that was a little less individually focused in that way and a little bit more collectively focused. Running events, triathlon events, they're very, very individually oriented. It's not a team effort. And yet there is tons of support for all the individuals supporting one another on their individual journeys. but there's something very different, and you really can't speak to it or understand it unless you have been a team athlete, of which I was, and a high performing team athlete at that. So I know what the difference is. And I personally prefer team true team efforts as opposed to more the individual efforts. And my soul needs this in terms of quote unquote work, which is why I need to aim high this year, because my world of work, here's the irony and the paradox, even though it's coming across interestingly through just me in so many mediums right now and so many things I'm ready to share this year again. Um, Interestingly, it's motivated and inspired by so beyond me, but it's like I'm still a team of one, looking to draw in others to pursue similar team oriented efforts. So, anyway, all of that is just to say I needed a conversation with myself right now, because the energy has been fucking weird today. I know Mercury went retrograde today. I know the new moon was yesterday on my 13 moon calendar. This is day 1 of month 6. This is, like I said, my ex's birthday, and so I know that has a reason that it's heavier energy. I'm still slightly sick. There's just a lot, and I like I said, I'm just trying to have a pep talk with myself to find my own inspiration again, because I don't want to miss out on this time, the next few weeks, having very little work. Even though I will be healing, I will be at home, I will be laying low, with the exception of Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for the rest of this year. I want that time to be beautifully, restfully productive in my little world. And as long as I've got some imagination and some inspiration running through me, I'll be okay. And this is just one of those times where I'm going to have to dig deep to be that for myself through these next few weeks, and to get myself on a different momentum, a different disciplined path for 2024. And yeah, so I'll end for now. Just the pep talk for myself. Okay, good night.